For those of you who don't know what I do, I just want to give you like a 101 as to who I am. So I'm a clinical psychologist, like I told you guys, and I'm also the managing director of the Lighthouse Arabia, the founder and the managing director of the Lighthouse Arabia, which is a wellness center in, oh, sorry, I'm going to share a screen with you now. Just bear with me, okay, as I try to do this. And so it's a wellness center in Suqaim, Dubai. It has, we have about 30 clinicians working for us. So we are one of the largest mental health services within the MENA region. And we serve all sorts of ages, mothers, fathers, men, women, children, couples, etc., etc. And we also have mental health first aid, which we do. And if this stuff really interests you, or you feel like there's a lot of people sort of coming to you for advice, then I would say get a mental health first aid certificate, especially with World Mental Health coming up this day. We always have one happening once a month. So I really recommend that. And then before I sort of move on to the talk, I just want to say that we are one of the largest houses of support groups that are free of charge, from everything to teen support groups, to single parent support groups, to racism, if you are Black support groups, to infertility, to grief, name it. And we usually have a support group for it. So a support group that might be relevant for this community could be the emotional health support group, where you just feel like, you know, emotionally you just feel a little bit destabilized. You can go to that support group. Now, one thing that is different about us compared to probably everywhere else in the world is that psychologists are running these support groups. And these are very senior level psychologists that we have running the support group. So it ends up being like a process group in some sense. And you always have a person that is able to contain that, or maybe guide you, or give you resources, or. So I just wanted to mention that for you guys, because we wanted to make sure that you know that there are resources available to you. This is our team. We're all licensed by the CDA or the DHA. If you guys want to know more, you can actually read about it on our internet or on Instagram or something. So that's the Lighthouse Arabia. So let's talk a little bit about the, you know, just understanding anxiety. I want to break it up into just 3 ways. Actually, I want to break it up into 3 things in the way I'm going to do it. I just want to do a little bit of a recap of the first, you know, of the last 6 months. And then I want to talk about what happens in your brain and your body when anxiety is actually taking place. And then I want to talk about coping with anxiety. And it's not COVID anxiety, by the way. Listen, guys, this is about anxiety. So I should probably delete that off the slide, but this is about just coping with anxiety, period. Okay. And so I'm going to talk about that today. So let's just jump right into it. And by the way, guys, I am not able to see your questions when you are typing them. So I will see them only at the end. Okay. All right. All right. So let's talk a little bit of a recap of the last 6 months that we've had here. We as human beings on the planet, and literally everywhere on the planet, there was no point of the planet that was like untouched or unscathed by, you know, they went by and like nothing happened to them as it related to COVID. World economy shifted, you know, travel bans, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much stuff that happened as a result of COVID. And there were so many changes and losses that we endured as human beings in the last 6 months. Unlike any other, I don't want to use the word unprecedented because I'm just sick of that word, but really it was unprecedented. And we had a loss of normalcy, a loss of sense of security, a loss of safety, a loss of being able to see people's faces, a loss of freedom, a loss of regular routines and rituals like weddings and funerals and graduations, and loss of colleagues due to corporate restructuring or people moving, loss of small businesses that we really liked, but they just couldn't keep their doors open because of the financial aspects of how they were hit by COVID. Just feeling like we miss seeing our friends and just not our little pod of friends, but just going out and seeing people. You know, there's a loss there. Future plans, boundaries between home and work were lost. And, you know, is it playtime? Is it parenting time? Is it work time? What's going on actually? There's a loss of personal agency where I feel like I'm in control of my life. I know what I'm doing. I can do it whenever I want, and I can do it however I want. That loss of agency is there because now we're like, am I going to be traveling? Am I not? What's going to happen? Like all of these like barriers are put in place, and we actually feel really out of control. So let's just name that we are actually in very unusual times. We are also in the last decade have been engaging in social media. And I would say in the last year, there has been a spike in social media use and just, engaging with news and things like that. So we are now not only experiencing this loss, but we are actually experiencing a whole lot of other feelings which are related to almost a vicarious trauma. So before we used to say that caregiver burnout or compassion fatigue only happens, or I should say compassion fatigue only happens to people who are taking care of people, for example, mothers, teachers, nurses, doctors, things like that, fathers. But actually now we're saying that compassion fatigue and this grief that we might be feeling or this trauma that we might be feeling can actually be experienced due to our heavy exposure due to social media and news and things like that, that is literally in our hands all day long. So whether it be George Floyd, whether it be the Beirut explosion, whether it be anything that's happening in the world, we actually are feeling all of that. And that sense of insecurity is just there. Like there's so much violence and the world seems like a very scary place all of a sudden. So I just want to name that this is what we're dealing with, okay? So here's our context here. Now let's understand what happens in our brain and body. Just a 101 on that. So number one thing that we all should know, and I know I made a video about this, but I'll say it again, that we all have anxiety. Anxiety actually it's a very recent phenomena that when anxiety is, equal to neuroses of some sort, or, well-adjusted people don't have anxiety. I want you to put that idea out of your mind. I have anxiety, you have anxiety. The most well-adjusted person, the most, sort of elevated or like spiritually engaged person has anxiety. Anxiety serves a very important function in our life. It ensures our survival. We share anxiety with all other mammals on Earth. So every animal on Earth has this function of fight or flight built inside of them. It's called this vigilance of what is that? What is that? So this, what is it? Vigilance is actually built into every animal, and it actually signals to us that something matters and that we need to just be on alert, okay? So now I want us to now think of anxiety on a spectrum. There is low-level anxiety and high-level anxiety. And then somewhere in the middle is optimal anxiety. So when people come and tell me, hey, get rid of my anxiety, I would say, trust me, you don't want that. Because if you didn't have anxiety, you wouldn't know how to look both ways before crossing the street. You wouldn't put your seatbelt on. You wouldn't put your mask on. You would be like going around high-fiving people during COVID and maybe like giving them big hugs without, and they're not, you're people. And so you don't want to do that. You don't want to get rid of anxiety. Our goal is to manage it. It's not to get rid of it. And so I want you to think about normal levels of anxiety where you are actually being informed by your anxiety rather than being controlled by your anxiety. Now, optimal levels is what I just mentioned, but disordered anxiety is where you really feel panic-like symptoms again and then again, and it is disruptive to your day-to-day functioning. Every single time I go out, I might have a little bit elevated levels of anxiety. Come on, guys, there's an invisible threat out there, and then I could get infected, and then I could get my elderly parents infected who live with me. And so, yeah, that elevated level of anxiety is actually normal, because that is not just anxiety, it is fear, right? There is fear engaged here, and the fear is, I don't want to get anyone sick, or I don't want to get, I don't want to get sick. And so fear is when you have a threat in your environment. Anxiety is when you're thinking, what if? So human beings have one thing that happens. So I'll just give you a 101 on what happens during evolution. Way back when we were Neanderthals and we had Neanderthal cousins or something, we had a very sort of built-in system of fight or flight. Now that built-in system evolved, and we actually developed a frontal lobe, a frontal cortex, which evolved us and separated us from all other animals on Earth. And that frontal cortex actually is responsible for our high order thoughts. Now that actually can make us the only difference between animals and human beings is that we can think ourselves into a state of anxiety. Animals can't do that. Animals look at the threat and they say, oh my God, run. And so their fight or flight system kicks on, where human beings can just be sitting somewhere in their office and they're like, oh my God, what if I lose my job? What if? And that's when we spin out of control. So the anxiety system is actually similar in all animals. It's just that we only can trigger that fight or flight system by thought alone. So we want to be in control of those thoughts is where we want to be going with this, okay? So let me tell you what happens in the brain when you are actually in this fight or flight system. I want you to, so this is by Daniel Siegel. He actually is a clinical professor from UCLA, and he uses this very helpful hand model, and I'm going to use that. So imagine that this is the brainstem as you see on this the diagram or in picture in front of you. Imagine that this is the brainstem. Inside of your brain, you have something small like almond-like called the amygdala. This is inside of the brain. And then on top of that, we have the cortex. And this is the higher cortex. Way back when, the Neanderthal cousins, they had a smaller cortex and they were very much activated by fight or flight. So over the years, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, we have kept this fight or flight system. So it obviously is serving a very important purpose. It's keeping us safe. Now, this higher order cortex is actually what makes us reasonable. It helps us think through things. This is the seat of our executive functioning. It helps us plan, organize, think through consequences. All of that happens in our frontal lobe, okay? And this higher order cortex. Higher cortex. And so what happens is when we are in that fight or flight, oh my God, right? Or, oh my God, what if? Literally, you flip your lid. And that is when you are amygdala hijacked. And I want you to think about that. Whenever you're in this sort of, oh my God, all of these things are happening in your body, and I'll show you guys on the next slide. I want you to know that you flipped your lid and you need to bring your lid back on. And that's what I'm going to teach you how to do, is how do you bring your lid back on? You are going to engage in fight, flight, or freeze behaviors. You're going to be angry or irritable. You're going to withdraw. You're going to just sort of not want to go out. You're not going to want to talk to people, or you're just going to pretend like nothing is happening. You're just going to deny it altogether. So here is where we want to be. Here's where we can flip our lids. And every single human being on the planet flips their lid. It is how quickly can I bring that lid back on, and how, long does this lid stay off? That's usually where we run into some problems. So I want you to know that we are going to teach you how to keep your lid on. Okay, so that's the goal of this talk. So what happens in your body? Now, this is the anxiety, fight or flight, stress response in your physical body. And this is why it's so detrimental if we don't get it under control. Now, a little burst of this. Okay, so let me just tell you what happens. So now the brain has sent, oh God, you've now seen something as a threat. So the brain sends a signal to the body, all right, let's mobilize, all right? So adrenaline and cortisol kick into your body and like 16 other, you know, different kinds of hormones, but we don't need to go into the details of that. But the ones you probably know about are adrenaline and cortisol. So they start to push through all sorts of things. They move and they tell the liver, hey, listen, we got to use all of those stored energy resources, turn it into glucose and send it to all parts of the limb because we're going to run or we're going to fight. So we need all this energy. The lungs dilate, all this, you know, you need to have more oxygen as you're running. So, right, imagine a gazelle running from a lion. You are basically the same thing when you are thinking about all those scary thoughts. It's the same exact thing that happens in every animal, okay? The heart rate increases. Now we need to get the blood moving through so we can send all sorts of energy and movement to all of our limbs. And now we are ready to fight or flight. However, the body needs a lot of energy for this fight or flight. So what the body does is it shuts off all your long-term projects. You do not need your reproductive system working when you're getting chased by a lion, right? You're about to get to be somebody's food. You do not need to be digesting food at that time. So the digestive system shuts down. The reproductive system shuts down. Think of, you know, GI problems related to stress. Think about infertility and low sex drive related to stress. Think about tissue repair. So your immunity shuts down. You don't need your immunity when you're about to get, you know, chased by a lion or get eaten by a lion. You just need to get out of there. Growth hormone shuts down. Tissue repair shuts down. This is when the body says, all right, shut it all down. Now let's focus on getting you out of this situation. Now, a little bit, okay, every now and then, okay, it's good to get that sort of, you know, blood moving through your system and get some of that adrenaline moving through your system. Chronically, this is happening, you are causing long-term damage to your body, okay? And that long-term damage can be irreversible in many ways. If you have long-term issues, I mean, a lot of the autoimmune issues where people don't know where some of these things are coming from is like chronic stress, chronic emotional stress. And so we really need to get this under control because it will take a toll on our physical body at some point if it's not doing it already. So what does that look like? Okay, fine. Okay, lady, that's what looks like in your head. That's what looks like in your body. But maybe some people are like, I don't feel anything, because some people can be a little bit dissociated and they're all in their head and nothing. They know they're anxious, but they can't really feel anything. So they might show up in different ways for people. Okay, so I always told you there's pounding, cardiovascular, like you'll feel it, rapid heartbeat, blushing, the shortness of breath, dizziness, headaches, sweating, tingling, choking, dry mouth, vomiting, diarrhea. Sometimes my kids will be, I just feel so nauseous. I just feel so nauseous. So I'm like listening, like, what is this really about? Is this dehydration? Because nausea is a symptom of dehydration, or is this anxiety? Like, I'm really paying attention to what other things are in place. So that can show up. Muscle tension, like this kind of stress all the time. This is your body fighting and flighting this whole time. Mentally and emotionally, you'll have a lot more fear. Your mind is racing. It's almost like your aperture narrows. It just becomes like this, okay? So you can't see this way and you can't see this way. All you're seeing is this way and you're fighting or flighting. You can become really indecisive, irritable, impatient, angry, confused, and I'm one of those people when I'm anxious or I'm, stressed like that, it's, I'm not a flighter, let's just say. I'm a fighter. And so I'll get angry and irritable and I'm kicking the dog and the kid and the door and everything that comes my way. Like, I'm just one of those people that really acts out her anxiety. And then I have to say, whoa, what's this all about? Like, what's going on? Or I might be really tired. So this is your flight, your freeze, basically. Your body is just saying, I got nothing, right? And so a lot of sleep disturbances can also be part of that. You might start to avoid behaviors. You might have obsessive compulsive type of behaviors, like checking your email 200 times or washing your hand 200 times or checking your door or checking your car, or you might start to be, cleaning your house. All these types of behaviors can be a symptom of anxiety and us trying to seek control of our life. And so I usually know when I'm anxious, when I'm like looking at my calendar, like, 100 times a day to make sure that I'm not missing any meetings. And so I know I'm like, oh, okay, here you are, you're feeling a little bit anxious now. Like, let's check in with yourself and like get a grip here. You might have outbursts. You might feel very, very distressed in social situations. You might start exhibiting phobic behaviors. Again, you might have never had that. You might never have been afraid of going out, but all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to go out when there's more than 4 people in that place. I don't want to do this. And that's because you are now in that fight or flight, and your body intuitively and instinctively is actually saying, avoid danger, and everything looks dangerous when you're flipped your lid. So, and then you might start to do self-numbing behaviors using alcohol, drugs, smoking, shisha, any of these things that actually like chill you out. And maybe even other types of numbing behaviors, which could include, just sleeping a lot more, or watching like Netflix for like hours and hours and hours, where you just want to dissociate and disconnect to your environment. At work, you might actually feel like you're not as productive. You don't have as much stamina. You just don't have that much capacity. Like, my God, I used to work so much more, and now I just can't even like do 2 hours of work without feeling like depleted. And that's probably because your system is now being taxed out and you just don't have any more sort of adrenaline left in you. It's just like running out. You might not actually be consistent with your values. You might just lose perspective. Like I said, your aperture narrows. So you're not really thinking about other people. You're not really thinking about how this might impact other people. You're just kind of reactive in that state. And that is a very normal reaction. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you, probably an anxious person, an anxious high level anxiety. And so there might be more conflict and less collaboration. So that's kind of what it might look like in people. Now, remember that there's stimulus and then there's a response, and we're responding like this. We're responding in the kind of way. So reactive, like, oh my God, there's COVID, and oh my God, there's a lockdown, and oh my God, like all of these things can actually make us very, very like emotional. And then we react very emotionally and we don't actually pause and stop. And Viktor Frankl actually said that in between stimulus and response is our power to choose. And that power is what we want to bring back on. Stimulus, response, stimulus, response, stimulus, response. This is basically how we're all going about things. And I'm saying that, hey, if we can bring this back online, you'll be able to make values-based decisions. You'll be able to say, what is consistent with my values? I don't want to be angry and like yelling at people that have nothing to do with why I'm, my just general state of upsetness about life. And so you are a lot more strategic. You're a lot more consistent with your values. You're a lot more choosing rather than reacting. You are responding rather than reacting. So we don't want to be reactive people. We want to have optimal levels of anxiety where it informs our decisions, so we stay safe, and then we respond in a way that is consistent to our values. Okay, so that was my intro. So how do we do that? How do we cope with anxiety? Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that there needs to be a willingness and an acceptance about you feeling anxiety. I cannot tell you how much energy you are using with this fight or flight system going up against difficult feelings. So I have a bad feeling, and now we live in a world where everything is supposed to be happy all the time, and the happiness movement and the happiness this and the happiness that. No, you're not supposed to be happy all the time. You have ups and downs, and that's what's called life. And you have give and take and up and down and left and right, and that's okay. There will be days that are really bad days, and then you're like, oh my God, today was a really bad day, but it's nothing to like sort of freak out about. I think what social media has also done, and not to say that I'm like, obviously I'm not against social media, you all wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that, but what social media has done, it has set a standard up for us that is absolutely impossible for us to sort of keep up with. The standard of like how happy I should look happy all the time. I should look like this all the time. I should be smiling all the time. No, you should not. And so there needs to be some willingness and acceptance that today was a bad day and that this is a bad feeling and I am feeling anxious, and that's okay. So remember, guys, there's a mantra: whatever you resist will persist. Do not resist the negative feelings. Now, there's a neuroanatomist called Dr. Jill Taylor, and I've used her mantra, or I've talked about this in one of my videos, which is the 90-second rule. So she studied emotions after she had this sort of stroke, and she said that emotions in the brain, it actually happens like this. We see something where we get activated, and it rises up, and if we don't feed that story, then it usually will pass by in 90 seconds, okay? So let me tell you what that looks like. I'm thinking, oh my God, nobody is wearing masks in Pakistan, okay? Like, my parents are there right now, and they're like telling me like, there's nobody wearing masks over there. I was like, oh my God, what is going on? And so I'm thinking, oh my God, what happens to my mom? What happens to my dad? What am I gonna do? How's it gonna happen? And so I start to, so I say, okay, pause, soft front, strong back. Soften into the feeling, Saliha, soften into the feeling. And I'm breathing in and out, and I'm saying, I'm feeling really anxious about my mother. I'm feeling very anxious about my mother. So I'm breathing in and I'm breathing out. Okay. And then I say, okay, what can I do about this? Okay, then I send her a really long message about all the ways she can keep safe. I can send her, you know, I can call her every day to remind her of that. I can tell her I love her, and that's it. And so you see, I made a response rather than a react. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's not gonna help. So soften into the feeling and listen to the message. What is the message saying? The message is saying you are worried about the survival of your mother. That is a very normal response to have when you are living far away from your parents. It's okay for you to feel worried. It is not okay for you to spiral into a place where you are now, you know, freaking out about that. That is not okay. Just inform yourself that you need to call her, you need to check in on her. Maybe you need to call her every day, set a reminder on your phone that you're going to message her every morning. Okay, and then moving on. So a willingness and a softness when you are gripped with a difficult feeling. Honor that feeling, listen to the feeling, and then move forward. Soft front, strong back. The second one is know your triggers. Now there's, you know, we all know that COVID is contagious, and that, you know, the flu is contagious, and all sorts of other things are contagious. But what you might not know is that anxiety and fear are contagious, and they're even more contagious than actually other things. And just with one click of a button, I can spread anxiety and fear like wildfire on WhatsApp or on Instagram or on other social media. And so you have to be aware that if you are following accounts that are feeding that fear, you need to make sure that you unfollow those accounts if you are susceptible to, you know, feeling anxious. I remember when there was a lot of news just being pumped my way, I just unfollowed a lot of those news channels because I was like, I'm not able to function right now, and I don't need to be aware of what might be happening in the world if I am so dysregulated, and I'm not good for my kids, and I'm not good for my clients, and I'm not good for my community. So I am not in that state right now. Unfollow, and I will follow back when I have sort of gained my stability. And so it is very, very important that you understand what your triggers are and guard your energy. You have this much energy you wake up with every day. And then some days you wake up with this much, and some days you wake up with this much. And so not every day you wake up with like a full 100% energy. Your energy is a finite resource. You have to protect it. Your mind share is a finite resource. If you're thinking about this thing, you are not thinking about this thing. If you are worried about this thing, you cannot worry about this thing. And so you have a sort of a spotlight that you can put in your life, and you can give this much energy to this, or you give this one energy to this. And energy flows where attention goes. So my energy is now going to, you know, the stock market and not to my children right now. So like, where are you going to put that energy, and you need to be very conscious about that and set very clear boundaries about that. And now people say, well, what if I actually live with someone who's so negative? Well, what I would recommend is that you wake up every morning and you visualize a bubble around you, and a bubble of golden light or a bubble around you of positive energy, and you basically set some clear boundaries that if she comes and says, hey, listen, I need to tell you about like the 700 things I'm worried about, you might say, listen, right now I'm really dealing with my kids adjusting to school, and so can we talk on Friday, between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. and I can hear you. And that way you can gear up when you go and you speak to people. So there needs to be some emotional boundaries. Now, if you happen to be one of those negative people, I would really recommend that you ask people, like, do you have space for me to vent right now? Because I really need to vent. And that's okay. We are supposed to depend on our friends. And there are days where I'm like, negative Nelly, and I know it. And it's like, I just need to like vent. I don't need a problem solved. I just need to like moan about something. And so I might call a friend and say, hey, listen, can you like call me when you have like 15 minutes where you can just hear me vent? And that way that person knows that they're going to gear up with their, golden bubble, and they're going to observe, not absorb. And so you need to keep that in mind if you're around negative people, that you just imagine that this has nothing to do with you. You need to, and this is a little bit hard. So I'm telling you, I'm like a highly sensitive person. So I like absorb everything. But it does take a mindset shift. And I sometimes will visualize that I have a notepad in front of me, and I'm actually taking note of everything that they're saying. So I'm actually listening to them. I'm very, very engaged with them, but I'm actually protecting a lot of my energy. So observe, don't absorb would be the mantra for this slide. Now, there's a few things you need to do when it comes to anxiety. Like, don't even try to think about doing higher order CBT or ACT or any of these other therapies if you don't have these things in place. If you don't have these things in place, you're already starting with like a negative situation. But if you're like, oh my God, I have a lot of anxiety, and oh wait, she told me I have to sleep 7 to 8 hours, or my amygdala is hijacked completely, then first work on your sleep before you start engaging in therapy, because you will not be able to learn anything. You will not be able to consolidate anything. You will not be able to integrate anything if you are not actually sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night. Okay, so let's just start with sleep, because that's where I like to be, and you guys probably all already know that. And so let's look at this little diagram here. And this was actually taken off of a functional MRI, where they looked at brains that had not had 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And then they looked at brains that had 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And if you saw the ones with the less sleep, so it shouldn't say no sleep, but less sleep, they were literally walking around with their amygdala hijacked the whole time. They were 60% more activated. So imagine that this is what flipping the lid looks like. They're literally walking around like this all day. They're going to be a lot more reactive. They're going to be a lot more agitated. They're going to be a lot more anxious, because they're literally walking around with their lid flipped 60%. So I think that's 60%. So first, get your sleep in order, guys. The first thing, and if your sleep is not in order, you can like hang up after this slide, because that's the one thing that you need to be focusing on, and forget everything else I say. The second thing I would say you need to focus on, and there has been a lot of research, and I hope to do a talk on this soon, which is that exercise is actually really, really good for managing your anxiety. Now, exercise, not just like taking a stroll in the park, but actually 75% of your maximum heart rate. So this is like a rigorous type of exercise where you're not like passing out but you're still running and you're still able to hold a conversation with the person next to you. So it is cardio, not just weightlifting and other things, but you're doing cardio exercise. And there was a Harvard psychiatrist called Rady who talks about it in his book called Spark. And he actually has done so much research on ADHD and exercise and anxiety and exercise. And they did research where they gave people anti-anxiety medication and they gave them an exercise regimen. And they found the same exact results. So you can take anti-anxiety medication, or you can actually just start exercising. And I know it for a fact that when I am exercising, that I am more in control. And I think it's psychological, biological, there's endorphins endorphins being released in your body, all sorts of happy chemicals are being released in your body. So it actually is very, very good for you. So if I were to say, take two things out from what I'm saying, and if you don't have these two things in place, it would be the sleep and it would be the exercise. Okay. And of course, have your routine checkup. If there's hormonal imbalances, vitamin D, magnesium being low, all of these things can make us feel anxious and actually make us feel, you know, it can increase our heart rate, and then we sort of decode that as, oh my God, something is wrong. And then all sorts of things start to happen. So you do need to manage for all of those other things. So getting a routine blood work done would be very important. Eating things that are actually very, very healthy is going to be important. Now there's just research studies done, and now more and more. And so there's something called the vagus nerve at the back of our brain. And if you see this diagram of this man and the brain, there's a nerve, like the sciatica nerve that goes all the way down. And then when your sciatica nerve is pinched, then you can actually feel it in your toes. That's basically the same thing. And this goes from the brain to your liver, to your kidneys, to your stomach, to your heart, to your lungs, and it actually is communicating. So when the brain is off, guess what? All of these systems are off. And when the gut is off, or the heart is off, or the lungs are off, you can imagine that the same thing is happening. It's like a two-way highway that is communicating. It literally is the essence of the mind and body connection. And so I would really recommend, and there's research done, and you can Google it, that you take regular probiotics, talk to your doctor, but take probiotics and omega fatty 3 acids, because that actually regulates your brain chemistry as much as your gut chemistry. And your anxiety can actually mess up your gut gut bacteria as well. So they really play on each other, guys. And so when we say you are what you eat, and so if you're eating Doritos, which, you know, is okay every now and then, or Snickers, which is okay every now and then, but if you're doing this like all the time and you're feeling like junk, it's probably because you're eating junk too. So again, you are basically operating from ground below zero if you are not taking care of that physical body. And this vagus nerve that I told you about, this basically is powering up your rest and digest system. Imagine that it's a battery, and that battery, when it's strong, your rest and digest system, which is the opposite of the fight or flight system, it actually can bring it back. So it can bring back your frontal lobe on faster. So the stronger your vagal tone is, the faster you can bring yourself back on. Now, this vagal tone actually gets really depleted when we are stressed and we are chronically in fight or flight, okay? So what we can do to increase that vagal tone so we can bring ourselves back on faster is meditation. I know everybody's like rolling their eyes, but listen, it really is important. And try to do it 10 seconds a day, if nothing else, and build up from there. Chanting. So when you're doing that, you're actually stimulating the vagus nerve. And so a lot of religions and traditions, like in the Arabic, when you say meme and you're actually extending that tone, that actually is the same thing. Alif, lam, meme, or the sin, or the sad, like all of that is actually good for your vagal tone. And same thing in the Hindu tradition, or the Buddhist tradition, or the Christian tradition, they all have chanting and humming as part. That is because it actually is very soothing for the system. So just start chanting and gargling with very cold water till there's tears in your eyes is actually very good too. So you're like, oh, and then there's like tears in your eyes. That's actually really good for your vagal tone. Cold exposure to taking very cold showers or jumping in like ice cold water is actually super good for your vagal tone. And it feels really bad in that moment, but actually is gonna, you know, charge up, and it's like juices up that vagus nerve for that rest and digest system to be powered up. And then laughing and socializing is also very good. And then obviously, I don't have to say it, guys, drink your water, because if you are dehydrated, you are going to have less energy to fight that fight or flight system. And so you really want to be just working operating from just a good system, so then we can actually deal with the psyche. You don't go on a journey when you're already exhausted. And so first you get yourself in order and then you go on that journey. So don't even try to learn anything else if you don't have these things in order. I think I make that clear. Oh my God, I hope, I don't think I have enough time. Anyways, I will move fast after. So guys, we're probably gonna run over when it comes to question and answer. So if I don't answer your questions and you have to log off, watch the video or direct message me. So I'm gonna say that now. Anyways, the next thing is with anxiety, so much of the anxiety is happening in our head. We wanna ground ourselves in the present moment, okay? So mindful hand washing, where you're washing your hands and you're letting the water actually come down all the way to the elbows. You might put it in your neck, around your neck or behind your ears. You might put it, you know, for the Muslims out there that might be watching this, when we do the wudu, actually you are cooling off every single hot spot in your body, basically bringing yourself down to ground zero. So cooling off all your hot spots, your ankles, your behind your ears, your neck, your crown chakra, all of these are really hot spots in the body. When you do that, it actually brings you down and it makes you focus. Now focus on the water and get out of your, bring it back to the water, bring it back to the water. Take a short walk, but do it barefoot. If you can, do it on the earth. The earth has very neutralizing energy. And so if you can find some grass or some sand or a beach or even stone that you are walking on through your house or wood that you are walking on through your house, these are all really great. Focus on the 5 senses. You know, I have like aromatherapies that I like spray all around, and I breathe in and I breathe out. I buy flowers for myself and I might stare at those flowers and just breathe in and out. So when I say focus on the 5 senses, I want you to name 5 things that you can see, 3 things or 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can taste. You can all just bring it down into a physical body experience, which then helps you get out and unhook from the thought. That's what we want. We want to unhook from this thought that is spiraling. Oh my God, what if something happens to my mother? Or what if something, what if I lose my job? What if? We don't want to stay in that space. Unhook it, bring it back, focus on the body, focus on the breath. I might go back and pay attention to that thought, soften into it. Okay, what are you trying to tell me? But I'm going to first ground myself in that present moment. Aromatherapy is good for that. Salt baths, which you can just do a foot bath. Magnesium salts, put your feet in it. Salt has very positive energy and gets rid of negative energy. Jump in the sea, ocean, wherever, or take a salt bath once a week, which also helps relax the body. And then orient yourself in the here and now, which might be that you say out loud, hi, my name is Dr. Saleha Afridi. Okay, it's September 30th. It is now 12:45. I am now doing a talk. So you need to actually say that out loud. And that might actually bring you out of this head space that you might be in, which is somewhere in the future of the what if. Okay, so say, my name is, what do you do? Where are you? What time is it? What day is it? And this is again grounding you in that present moment. You should be self-soothing. Anxiety, again, remember, your anxiety your anxiety system turns on when you feel unsafe. When you feel, what is this? What is this? Okay. And if you have had a childhood where there was a lot of uncertainty, or there was a lot of trauma, or there was a lot of people yelling, or there was maybe a divorce, or maybe there were a lot of moves, you are going to be a lot more prone to a lot more, oh my God, what if? And so you need to remind yourself, I am safe. I am safe. So this is what you're going to do to calm your mind, that I am safe. So that's one thing. So you have to do some self-soothing. Limit your caffeine, guys, because caffeine mimics a panic attack. The heart starts to race, your mind gets sharp. And so we want to eliminate that factor. You want to do it first thing in the morning if you want, but other than that, do not be drinking Coke, green tea, black tea, coffee, any of these things if you find yourself to be in a more anxious state. Drink chamomile tea. Chills you out, relaxes you. There's all sorts of paka teas like relax or chamomile or all of these things. Direct message me and I can send you pictures. 7 hours of sleep, I already said. Exercise, I already said. Eat nutritious meals, I already said. Calming your mind is really about positive affirmations. I am safe. I am safe. You know, I can't tell you how immediately I'm like, oh yeah, right. I am safe. This is okay. I will be okay. And I'm doing the best I can. And this will pass. And it's okay. It's just a moment. It's not my life. It's just a moment. It was just a bad day. Okay, I had a complete meltdown yesterday, but tomorrow's another day. I'm just going to go to bed now. Like, that's it. And still yourself. Find moments in your day, guys, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, where you might, and I sometimes go lock myself up in my car and I'm like literally sitting in my garage like this, and it's just quiet in my car, or I'm like sitting in my bathroom, like, you know, on the sink and basically saying, everything is okay. I am safe and it's all good. Or I might sit on my chair and look out the window and, you know, drink a cup of tea and just say, it's okay. Relax yourself. Take a break from the news or just content. Guys, our human being was never meant to process this much content. You know, from one study that I heard about in mindfulschools.org, it actually said that a human being consumes more information in one day of the newspaper, just a newspaper. So it doesn't look at email, social media, consumes more information than a human being did in their whole lifetime in the 17th century. Now, I'm saying their whole lifetime might be 35, 40 years back then, but guess what? Our brain hasn't evolved all that much. So we are pushing so much information into our mind, and then we're wondering why we're feeling like, oh, you know, we're not calming. There's no periods of the day, none. From the second you wake up till the time you go to bed, you are pushing content into your brain. And then you're wondering why you feel overwhelmed. I'm telling you, take a break. Take a break from all of it. Have period, just 1 hour where you do nothing. You don't read a book. You don't watch Netflix. You don't want, maybe 10 minutes of your day where you do nothing but look out the window and drink a cup of tea. Engage in spiritual practices, prayers, meditation, art, dance. Any of these can be very spiritual. Get creative and be playful, because that actually releases happy chemicals, dopamine in your body, and it keeps you flexible. You know, it keeps you like not feeling rigid. And so play is the best form of actually keeping yourself very, very flexible. Play with your pets, play with your children. It actually is very, very good for managing anxiety. Know how to deal with a panic attack and know when that panic attack actually shows up. So you do need to know the signs of a panic attack. Now, these things can actually look like where you might have a sudden onset of pounding of the heart, you're sweating, your mind starts to race, you have chest pain. It literally feels like you're having a heart attack. I think I've had several panic attacks in my life. I've just generally been an anxious person, so I'm like anxious sometimes, but there's been like a pressure in the chest, where this is where a lot of the times where people will go to the doctor and they say, I'm having a heart attack. So it literally feels like a heart attack is the panic attack. So don't use that term loosely. You're not having a panic attack unless you think like you're gonna die. And that really is the extreme level of panic attack. The rest is just high levels of anxiety. Panic attack usually lasts up to 10 minutes. It doesn't last more than that. You feel like you're hyperventilating and it's just like that. And so you're like, oh my God, I can't breathe. Like that is panic attack. Okay. And that doesn't happen a lot, but know when you're having that. And then when you're having that, I want you to just start to speak in, I am experiencing a panic attack right now. This is not dangerous. I will not die from it. You might even do a little bit of self-distancing, which is saying, Saliha is experiencing panic right now. This is not dangerous. Saliha will not die from this. Saliha is safe. Saliha, remember, this will pass. And when you start to speak in yourself in this third person or second person, I think it's, second person. Oh my God, I'm now losing it. You actually are starting to create a little bit of distance from it. And then you might practice some 4-7-8 breathing. And the 4-7-8 breathing actually is when you breathe in for 4, Hold for 7. And you might want to breathe out from the mouth because it actually gives you like this release. Or you can breathe out from your nose. But there is a app that I really recommend called Breathwork. And I will give you the name of it at the end if you want. And that actually, Breathwork is actually able to, breath work is actually takes you through some of these. Breathe in, inhale, hold, exhale, inhale, hold, exhale. And that breathing, breath is the fastest way to turn off your fight or flight response, guys. You want to turn that off. You want to bring that lid back on. Focus on the breath. Focus on the breath and everything else will come. That's the fastest way to ground yourself in your body. And it's third person. Speaking about yourself in third person by saying Saliha is having a panic right now. Saliha is safe. That's third person, not second person or first person. Name it to tame it. Now, I'm almost done, guys, so bear with me. I will go right up to the hour. So tend to your emotions with compassion and curiosity. Now, I want you to zoom out. All right, what's happening here, Saliha? Woo, like that's a lot of like heart racing. What's going on? You know, where's this coming from? Just be curious about that, as if you would with a kid or you with a friend. Like, what's going on? Why are you feeling, oh my God, there you go again. This is where I'm having a panic. Don't do that. So name, and then once you've sort of been curious about that, and I usually say to people, pretend like you're walking up the stairs and then walking up another set of stairs and then walking up another set of stairs, and now you're on the balcony looking down at your feelings and saying, what's going on? So get some distance from it and then label your emotions. Now, we know from science that the bigger your emotional vocabulary is and the more granular you can get, so you don't go from like, I'm okay, to anxious. There's a whole lot of stuff that happens in the middle. I feel a little bit agitated. I feel a little bit worried. I feel a little bit concerned. I feel a little bit stressed. I feel a little bit worried, anxious. I feel a little bit panicked, okay? There's a whole lot of feelings that go from 0 to anxious. So get to know those feelings. And the more you have that, the less likely you are to go into a full-on anxious state. And so be emotionally granular in your experience. So learn emotional vocabulary, learn about different emotions, because most people only know like two, I'm sad, I'm mad, I'm happy, and that's it. And so the more granular you are about your emotions, the more likely you are to catch them in their early phase. Like if I know the word worry, if I know the word concerned, and I know what the embodied experience of that is, that worry just kind of, just a little bit, and then concerned sort of feels a little bit heavier, and then stressed feels a little bit heavier. Like I might actually say, okay, what does that feel like? What does that feel like? So then when the feeling of worry comes up, then I'm like, I'm gonna catch it, and then I'm able to soften into it, and I'm here listening to it. If you only know the word I'm okay and I'm anxious, then you're only gonna catch it at anxious. So when you are learning emotional vocabulary, make sure you understand the embodied experience of that word, not just the word itself. I already talked about this, observe your thoughts. And one of the ways you can do that when you're distancing yourself, I actually have a video about this. Maybe I can sort of repost it today. But observing your thoughts actually is where you get some distance from it. And one way to do that is just say, I'm having the thought. So when you feel anxious about something, like I'm having the thought that I'm worried about my mom not wearing a mask. I'm having the thought that my clients are not satisfied. I'm having the thought that I'm going to get put on issues or something, or I'm having the thought that I can't travel back at home, or I'm having the thought that, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to start saying, what if, instead of this, what if, I'm having the thought, what if? I'm having the thought. And immediately that gives you a little bit of distance where you're saying, okay, I'm having this thought, so I'm going to have another thought. And if you guys have time, I would love to do an exercise with you. Actually, you know what? I want to do the exercise with you. I want you guys to all close your eyes. It doesn't work if you don't close your eyes. Are your eyes closed? Can I see some hands? You have to open your eyes for the hand. Okay, I just want to make sure that you're all with me, okay? Because I can't see your faces. So, all right. Okay, I see your hands. Everybody close your eyes. Close your eyes. All right. Now, I'm going to say some things to you guys, and I want you to do exactly as I say. So when I give you one image, I want you to think about that image, and then I want you to let it go. And then I want you to think about another and then let it go, okay? So as I say one thing, see that thing, and then let it go. And then, so I want you to close your eyes. And now I want you to imagine a red ball rolling down the stairs. Okay. Now I want you to imagine a full moon shining on the sea. Now I want you to imagine your friend calling you for dinner. Okay? Now I want you to open your eyes. Now, the reason why I did this is because sometimes we don't realize that we are not our thoughts. You are not the red ball. You are the observer of that red ball. You are not the full moon. You are the observer of that full moon. You are not your friend calling you for dinner. You are the observer of that thought. So if I can make you switch from red ball to full moon to friend calling, then you, when you get a little bit of distance from, oh my God, what if I can't travel? Well, I don't want to really have that thought right now. I'm going to choose another thought, and I'm going to choose another thought. And that's how you start to choose thoughts. You first have to get a little bit of distance from it. And this can be, for me, when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, this was like a life-changing thing for me. Like, I am not my thoughts. I am the one watching the thoughts. I am the one thinking about my feelings. And so really there's a spirit inside of you that is watching all of this, that has been with you your whole life from childhood up till now. That is who you are. Everything else is programming. Everything else is a thought. And you can choose what you want to have and what you don't want to have, okay? Which is a very, very powerful thing. I've already told you guys about this. And then if all else fails, guys, and you are flipped, distract yourself. Sometimes I remember when I was absolutely burnt out and I absolutely could not bring this lid back on, I would literally like go sit, you know, somewhere and like play a game. And then the fight or flight system turns off because I'm no longer thinking that negative thought. So the system comes back online. And then I went back and thought, okay, what was that all about? So there are times where I just don't have the muscle to do anything that I just told you to do. I don't have any energy to fight it. So I just distract myself. Shift your physical environment. So if I'm having an anxious thought here, I might go down to the kitchen. I might go down to see my kids. I might go down and walk outside. I might just shift my environment or shift my activity, and immediately that thought might actually go. So physically move yourself. Don't just stay sitting in one place and say, okay, I'm going to try to do something different. Move, go sit on your couch and like play a game, or, hang out with a pet or hang out with a friend or call someone or something like that. And so switch your environment, switch your activity, or just distract yourself. But don't make this a habit, because that anxious thought is still there. And until you pay attention to the message, it will stay there. If the message is saying you're worried about money, you're worried about money, you're worried about money, okay, ignoring that thought is not going to make it go away. Pay attention. Why is it worried about money? Why are you worried about money? Write it down. What's your plan A? What's your plan B? What's your contingency plan? What's your plan X, Z? Have plans. If there's a message from beyond saying you need to worry about money and write it down on a piece of paper, on a physical piece of paper, and say, this is what I have as a plan. And then when that thought comes again, just look at your plan and say, I already have a plan in place. So whatever the anxiety is telling you, if it's reasonable, engage with it, listen to it. And if it's not, just say, I am safe. It's all good. I'm taking the necessary precautions right now. I don't need to worry about this. So I choose my thought, and I'm going to choose to think about this, or I'm going to go do something different. All right, guys. So these are all the different, and there's also Smart Heart board game, which is not on here. And so these are the different Lighthouse channels that we will be launching very, very soon. So you guys are already familiar with Lighthouse Arabia. You're already familiar with mine, but we're going to be doing lighthearted parenting. And then we're going to be doing something for youth, teens, young adults, which is going to be called Lighthouse Insight. And so these are the different channels. I encourage you guys to follow us for all these different platforms. I'm super excited about them. And like I said, Smart Heart board game is our channel for emotional intelligence. And so you would be surprised that so many adults can actually benefit from that board game, because it's a game about emotional intelligence. And we are going to be launching the version 2.0 of that game, and deeply, deeply rooted in emotional intelligence science. And so I encourage you to follow that one as well. So now I can take your questions, and I know we went over, but it's a topic I really love. So if I have answered your question, can you guys delete it? If I have not answered your question, I am going to do that now. So if you guys need to log off, please go ahead. You can log off now. But if you are not needing to go, then I will be with you guys for the next 15 minutes. So let's see. How would the way of art therapy specified in music therapy heal our anxiety softly, just like the way we both play and sing our favorite song, self-supportive song? So if I get this right, I will say that it actually, music is healing for the soul. Art is an expressive therapy. Emotions, energy in motion. It comes from Latin word energy, emotions as energy in motion. And so we need to find a way to give expression to that. And that art, if that's music, if that's dance, if that's, talking, if that's poetry, whatever it is, if you can give movement to that energy, you are less likely to hold it in here, and you are less likely to actually then feel trapped with that energy. So I would really advise you to use all sorts of these resources, okay? So some people said that it's very hard to draw boundaries when you have a professional relationship with those people. And sometimes I feel trapped because it's unavoidable. They will comment on small details that are not my fault. They will overwhelm me with work, and they will treat, there will be sexism and things like that within the workplace. First of all, you should know what your workplace policies are regarding any of these sort of harassments or sexism or racism. So figure out what your workplace policy is. If that workplace policy does not exist and you don't think it can exist, then I would recommend that you really create a bubble around you. I would still say that the boundary might not be that, listen, I don't have time for you right now. That's not what I'm saying that you should do, but I'm saying that, hey, listen, I really want to hear you out, but right now I'm in the middle of something, but can we set up a call, later tomorrow for us to talk about this? And that way I'm geared up for her negativity or his negativity. And if the boss is just doing that, then I would literally create a bubble around myself and just pretend that I'm observing, I'm not absorbing. So this is a mantra maybe you need to write on your forearm or post it on your computer, where you observe, don't absorb. I'm telling you, I've done it where I'm like, I am not absorbing. I am not absorbing. I am observing. And so observe, don't absorb is going to be the mantra you say again and again. That I'm just writing down, I'm taking notes of what he's saying that has nothing to do with me. I will not take this personally. This has everything to do with him and his world or her world. And that's a reflection of what's going on inside of them. And I will not let that affect my world and my day and my mood. And I actually say that. I actually, like yesterday, I think something happened yesterday morning and I felt so agitated. And one thing happens when you start meditating in the morning, you get really protective of your energy. You're like, I just spent 10 minutes trying to get myself into a Zen state. There is no way I'm going to let this person take my Zen. And so not doing it, moving on, finding another thought I'm going to think about. And so I literally feel like guarding it with like energy, like no one is going to take my Zen that I worked friggin' hard for. And so maybe, maybe asking, maybe doing some of that meditation first thing in the morning, before you enter that room, before you enter that Zoom, whatever it is. So I'm going to answer, hold on one second. Sorry. All right, so hopefully that helped. I'm telling you guys, we think some of these things, smart, hard, board game. We think some of these things are just, we're making this up in our head, but until you've done it for 30 days, every single day, don't come and tell me it doesn't work. Because guess what? The brain is a muscle. And if you go to the gym once a month and you tell me, oh, well, the barbells don't work because, I went once, it doesn't work. If you want to be less anxious, you have to do practices that make you less anxious every single day until you build a neural pathway that says, I am safe, I am safe, I am safe, I am safe. I literally look in the mirror every day and say, you are safe, I am safe, it's all good, moving on. Every single day, it's like a pathway that you are trying to retrain and retrain and retrain. Don't tell me you've meditated for 5 minutes, and then you're wondering why the life hasn't turned into some like magical Zen place. Must do it every single day. Every single day. The world that we're living in right now and the amount of exposure we have to media content and like the world's problems, and there's like climate change, and then there's like job losses. Oh my God. Okay, so Zen, protect your energy. Now, if you were meditating 5 minutes, now it's got to be like 15 minutes a day to build that pathway, and then to remove everything that gets in the way of that. You have to be strategic about this. You can't just walk into the world without your armor and your shield and your, readiness and say, well, why am I feeling anxious? What the meditation does, what these, sleep does, what food does, what exercise does, it literally is your armor. And so you go in to this world that is full of this high energy, high anxiety state, you're geared up. Now you don't have to worry as much. Now it doesn't penetrate you as much because you are guarded and protected. And you did that. So the salt actually, it gives you energy. So somebody asked, what does salt have to do? So magnesium salts are really good for relaxing. So if you Google like Teal's magnesium salt, you can like put that in your foot bath, and you can actually, it relaxes the body. I know you guys have all heard me speak about magnesium, but also the ocean or the sea salt actually is very good for neutralizing negative energy and giving you positive energy. It gives you positive energy. It's an antibacterial, it's antiviral. And so it's very, very good for reducing inflammation, reducing stress in the body. And so once a week is good. Like if you can do it every day, why not? But once a week, I would say, I can't get in a bath every single day, guys. I don't live that life, but foot bath is great. So you can just put it and watch TV or be working on your Zoom, and then you can do it that way. Thank you for your wonderful comments. Yes, breath work. So I'm going to type this. So it's called, sorry, I can't type and like look at the same time. This is breath work. By the way, guys, I also have like meditation YouTube channels that I recommend on my Instagram highlights. And if you don't sleep 7 to 8 hours, go on my highlights or go watch my YouTube webinar on sleep, and maybe you'll change your mind. Okay. So for someone says highly sensitive people, any particular way to cope, you just got to shield. I cannot tell you how much you have to be so conscious of that. I really believe in energy medicine. I believe in chakras, and I believe in energy centers. And I believe that if someone has, there's sort of energetic hooks on me, so like cutting out the energetic hooks and forgiveness and all of these things, I feel like my energy is going all over the place. I know when I shield myself, I imagine myself zipping up my energy before I go in front of people that might be toxic. So there's all sorts of things that I do that use visualization, but also energy healings and things like that. So Madiha Afridi at the Lighthouse does energy healings. She does an energy meditation every month. I would really recommend that. But all sorts of energy healers that I can also recommend. There's another lady that I work with in the United States. There's another lady I work with in the UAE and Madiha. So these are all very sort of energetically attuned people. And so I know I need that because there's just all sorts of stuff that happens inside of me. So it just balances me out, chills me out. And then I also do a lot of that. So I'm visualizing, I'm detoxing, I'm, making sure that my energy is, my environment is soothing. So I might, like I said, like if you see my house, if you actually see all the rest of it, like I have like a jungle in my room because flowers bring me calmness, and I have like aromatherapy and like lavender and pillow sprays, and because I'm a highly sensitive person. And so that means my sensory overload can be quite high. And so I really pay attention to that and use that to my advantage. Okay. So someone says, what about someone who's really stuck in the past and wants to build a new business, but thinks a lot about the past? And I would say, bring yourself into present day. Like the past takes a lot of energy. That takes a lot. If you are giving if we wake up with this much energy, all right? This much energy every day. So imagine some days you wake up with this much. Some days you wake up with this much. Some days you wake up with this much. And like there are days where you're waking up on like negative. And so if you are waking up with limited amount of energy, and then you're giving that energy, okay, well, I'm holding grudges. Let's just say you wake up, most people are like around 70%, right? Most of us these days are probably around 70 to 80% energy. So let's just say we're about this much. Now I'm giving this much energy to my past grudges because I don't want to forgive those people. Heck no, they don't deserve my forgiveness. And then I'm giving this much energy to like my past thoughts. And then I'm giving this much energy to my negative thoughts. And then I'm giving this much energy to all the things that bother me about like the day-to-day, like the traffic and the this and the that. Guess how much energy you have left to create your life and your future? You don't have much left. You got like this much left. How can you create a life that you want when you're giving so much energy to the things that are actually consuming you? So make a plan and stay to the present moment. And that's why when we say bring it in the now, bring it in the now, bring it in the now, not what if, not what was, what is, not what if, not what was, what is. What is going on right now? What is the smallest step I need to take in this moment? That's another post-it that I used to post on my laptop and on my bathroom mirror, which is what is the smallest step I need to take right now? And the smallest step I need to take right now is I need to, go make myself a cup of tea, or I need to go check on my kids, and then I need to plan for dinner, and then I need to no, and that's it. Smallest step, smallest step, smallest step, smallest step, step by step by step by step. And that's what you do. You bring it close to the present moment. And that's one mantra that can bring you as close to the present moment as possible. So some people said, I have a lot of pressure on feeling like I have to be productive all day. How do I deal with that? Make a list of things you need to do and then let go of the rest. And part of those things you need to do is to chill during the day. So there needs to be downtime. So if you haven't watched my Secrets of a Healthy Mind, go on my YouTube channel, make sure you program all that into your day, and then be very productive. There's focus time in there. You're gonna be focused. These are the times you're gonna be focused, and then let it go. Because this kind of standard of doing, you're gonna do, and you're gonna borrow from the future. Borrow energy from the future, give energy to the past grudges. Like you're going to literally be depleted by the time you get there. So you don't want to do that. You want to be reasonable. You want to be kind. You want to talk to yourself like you would to your child. You want to treat yourself as if you would a child. Feed yourself. Make sure you take care of your personal hygiene. Make sure you take care of your personal basic needs like food, clothing, shelter, etc. These are things that we just throw out in our sake for, in our pursuit of productivity or perfection. We throw out all the basic needs, and then we're wondering like why we're anxious and why we're depressed and why. You would let your child go on play dates, you wouldn't just make them work. You would make them, you know, go to bed at a good time, and you would make sure you give them nutritious meals and make sure that you would. And I'm not saying you have to have a child. I mean, imagine you have a child. You have an inner child. You have a part of you that is vulnerable. You have a part of you that just needs some love and attention and care. Pay attention to that part rather than work. It doesn't serve anybody. And actually, like, it's just not good for anyone, actually. You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Body scan meditation is a great method of, you know, calming yourself down. You guys can Google body scan meditation, which is basically a mindfulness meditation, which literally scans you through the body. So, and there's also something called the wheel of awareness, and I'm going to type this on here. You guys can just Google it. And it will take you even beyond the body scan. It actually takes you to your internal organs and to your thoughts, and then it takes you through your environment. It's actually really amazing. So I'm going to send this to you guys. It's on YouTube. So the link for Dr. Madiha, it's actually just, if you go on our website, it actually is on there. And if you follow us on our Instagram, you will see a poster for it also. So this is the website. So someone said, what if I sleep 12 hours a day? There's some people that do sleep 12 hours a day, but I would be really curious as to what time you're going to bed, because I imagine that you're not going to bed at a good time if you're needing 12 hours of sleep, because hypersomnia can be a symptom of depression. It can be a symptom of withdrawal, avoidance. It can be a self-numbing, self-medicating way of like, I don't want to deal with this, I'm just going to go to bed. Or I don't want to deal with my problems, I'm just going to go to sleep. I remember there was a time in my life that I did that. I used sleep as a coping mechanism to escape my reality, which was just very difficult for me at that time. And so for an adult, like 10-ish hours is really where we're hovering around maximum. Like 8-9 hours is really good. Most people are probably hovering somewhere between 7 if they're, you know, sort of in a healthy way. So I would just get that checked out, maybe get a blood work done. I would actually check vitamin D levels, because that can deplete your energy. I would ask if you're hydrating. I would ask if you're going out for walks, because all of that feeds into energy. So if you might have lethargy, fatigue, it could be a physical health problem or a mental health problem that you don't want to ignore. When you're worried about things like your husband's job and children's schooling next term, it's hard to stay in the present moment. Yeah, I think that's all of us right now. And, you know, these are all worries that I think are universal. I don't think anyone feels their job is fully safe right now. I don't think anyone feels that they're, unless maybe they're like a toilet paper company or something, or, you know, Jeff Bezos, but everybody else in the world is actually feeling quite vulnerable right now. You know, my children are in remote learning. I have no idea what the heck is going to happen at the end of this school year. I hope they learn something. And so I get it. I get that it's not easy, but I think this is where maybe this is a issue that our generation has, is that maybe we had things a little bit easy, you know, where there were so many things that were just sort of handed to us. And then there's this movement of positive psychology. And I'm not saying I had an easy childhood and like life wasn't hard, but I'm saying like we didn't have to go through like famine and war, and for the most of us, at least, and, you know, destruction and poverty and the plague and, you know, other kinds of diseases. Where, you know, so some of that muscle where we feel like life can be hard. Now, this is hard. Like, this is a hard time that we are in. So let's gear up for that and actually say, all right, I'm going to show up like that. What we're wondering is like, well, what if, these are all my worries. And we're almost wanting, like some part of us wants it to actually be easy. And we think something is wrong with us when it's not easy. No, this is not easy, and it's not gonna get easy. So how do you make the most of this time? And that really comes in with setting your expectations and having a plan for the future. And so maybe the next talk I need to do is about emotional resilience, because this is where the muscle is built. This is where we're gonna come out on top of this and we're gonna make it through, but this is not easy. And it's never, like, it's not supposed to be easy. We're in a really difficult time in our lives, and that's okay. And we're gonna get through this time. And so I think that's our mindset. Our mindset needs to shift that, all right, gearing up for difficult times, guys. How are we gonna do this? How do I wanna show up for difficult times? So yeah, these worries are all here for all of us, I think, on one level or another. Someone said, can you handle impulsive behavior when you're anxious? Well, no, because you are flipped your lid, and impulsivity, the brakes are here. This is when your brakes are gone. So you're gonna be a lot more impulsive. You're gonna send messages you don't like, and you're gonna do things you don't like. You're gonna be not aligned with your values. What you wanna do is you wanna hold off. You might type that message in your notes, or you might do whatever it is in your head, or you might write about it. And then when the lid comes back on, decide if you're gonna send it or not, or if you're gonna do it or not. There are times where I'm like so upset about something, I've flipped my lid. I'm now amygdala hijacked, anxiety, stress, fear, all of that lives here. So I'm gonna wait. And I might write down everything I want to do to that person or say to that person. And then I say, okay, I'm going to sleep on that for 24 hours. And if I still feel this way, I will then send it. So there should be basically a 24-hour rule built in as part of your coping with these kinds of things. All right. You can send me topics on things you guys want to know more about. I would love that, actually. I'm always wondering, like, well, what do people want to know? But, I just tell you all the things that I'm stressed out about. How do I cope with my anxiety? Let me write a talk about it. And then I learn everything, and then it actually makes me feel better. So all the things that I struggle with, you guys get to hear about. But I would love to know more about what you guys want to know more about. And then I would be very happy to put that together either through an Instagram live or either through a webinar, because really I learn so much through this process as well. So let's see. I think, guys, I have to get on another call now. I could go on and on and on. And so if I did not answer your question, I promise you I will answer your question within the next 5 days, if not earlier, if you direct message me. And yeah, and so I look forward to seeing you all again. I'm going to be doing a live with Ghazlan on Monday night, which is like way past my bedtime, because, she said we should do it in the evening. And I was like, okay, so 5 o'clock. And she's like, no, maybe 9. I was like, oh. So I might be falling asleep right around 10, but I'll be there at 9 o'clock. And we are going to do 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Actually, my bedtime is like 10:30, so I'm like exaggerating. Yeah, that's it. So I hope to see you all there. Thank you all for being with me today. I really loved your questions and your engagement. And I hope to hear more from you guys about what else you want to know about. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.